LinkedIn is pretty great at a lot of things, like helping you tap into the latest trends and insights in your field. We cannot stop your coworker from tapping her pencil. LinkedIn can help you find new jobs that align with your career goals. We cannot help you find the source of that weird smell in the office fridge. Ew. And while we can't stop your coworkers from bringing their hobbies into the office, LinkedIn can help you bring your career to the next level. LinkedIn is the network that works for you.
It's really cool.
Bonjour, hello, and welcome to the Rosbifs Rugby podcast, your one-stop shop for all things French rugby, the top 14 Pro Day, a bit of National, the French national team, and the Champions Challenge Cups. Most importantly of all, the brilliant towns, cities, bars, restaurants, stadiums, everything that makes French rugby so bloody fantastic. We're joined as ever by Rob Graham. Rob, how are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. Not to be confused with the rugby pod, Rob Graham. I'm still the second most famous Rob Graham in rugby podcasting, which is
quite an honour.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think it shows we've got a long way to go.
And perhaps more importantly, we're joined by AFP journalist, author of the fantastic Jouet, the French Rugby Dispatch, an aficionado of all things French rugby, Illtud Dafydd. Illtud, thanks for coming back on the pod. We didn't scare you away 18 months ago, whenever it was.
No, not at all. Any France-Wales or Wales-France week, and I always enjoy it. So yeah, thanks for having me on.
Fantastic. So first of all, we might as well start. It feels like an age ago, Thursday night, amazing starter, regardless of however you feel about the Thursday night niche kickoff. Illtud, how was it in the ground? Did it live up to sort of expectations? How was your night? Yeah,
the build-up was as normal, really. Going to the game like there was bottlenecks around the Stade de France, getting from where I parked my bike, getting into the media entrance. And once you're in, it was all normal, really. You had the 2 hour build up to the game, which was quite cool. Music blaring, DJs going. Antoine Dupont finally back, and the crowd went crazy for that. And yeah, it was quite cool. Everything was quite normal, really. It was all great atmosphere. Fireworks went off, the lights went down, the anthems were sung pretty nicely. Nice to hear the Marseillaise as usual. And yeah, generally thought France just blitzed it, really. They did what they had to do in the first 40. Ireland's one game plan of box kicking didn't work. Atisogbe Peno, Ramos dealt with it quite cleanly, and then they're so clinical in the backs. Even Oliver should have scored. He butchered after some good work from Bielbiarre, if I can remember correctly. And yeah, they were just so clinical, finishing everything off. And for me, Michael Guillard got man of the match, but I would have given it to Nicolas Deportel just because that was his real match where he's got nine test caps. Let me just check. Yeah, that was his 8th test cap, and he finally stood out. He laid his marker to say, this is my 13 shirt now. Sorry, Galthié, this is mine. And he's shown what he's done that for Bordeaux-Bègles in the past, and it was good to see him finally do that for France.
Yeah, it was. We felt with Deporter, there were glimmers in the autumn, certainly from just a pure kind of abrasiveness, physicality to go with the silky running. But he was fantastic. How was obviously?
Before you mentioned him there? We are very lucky to have Illtud this evening. We are the backup option though. What were your original plans this evening? If you could tell our listeners, the sort of podcast we're mixing with.
We have to ask the listeners to swear them to secrecy. But I was meant to be on a podcast with Galthié, but sadly had to be cancelled because of French train problems from for a presenter. So unfortunately, I couldn't do that. But fortunately, I could come and chat to my favourite French rugby podcast.
I've got so many questions about what that chat was going to be like. Not that we were Rich and I would have been able to understand too much of it with our dodgy French translations.
No, but yeah, because Ficou started this podcast called Rugby Confidentiel, or I don't know, and it's with him presenting. He's always got one guest a week, and it's really high-end stuff. I think it's they've got the same backers as The Good, the Bad, the Rugby with Payno, Tins and Hask back in London. And so they're a serious outfit going for it. They've only been going for a couple of months now, so it's going quite well. And I was looking forward to go on it just to see what it was like and how Galthié was reacting. He spoke last week about being dropped. He said, I expected it. he'd spoken to Galthié, which is quite nice to hear that Galthié is quite human and like speaks to people. And yeah, it would have been really cool to go and have a look. But hey, that's life. Things go on.
Well, that sounds like two peas in the pod with our podcast, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah. Although, so Gail Ficku does not agree with Fred Quercy. He doesn't think that Fabien Galthié is the biggest shit on a human level.
No, I was on the bench for my first on Sunday, and I sat next to a guy who played in that Montpellier academy with Fred Quercy under Fabien Galthié, and he repeated the same sort of stuff. So if there's two people saying it, it's probably true.
Yeah, love it. Anyway, Rich, you were about to talk about Nicolas Deporter.
Oh, I think I was mumbling on about him. I think all the kind of pre-selection and things has obviously been talked about for quite a while. The droppings of some of the big names, one of whom you were going to see tonight before you ended up here. I think is like, well, yeah, we're very much like we've been banging the Jalibert drum, as everyone has, because he's been so fabulous for Bordeaux for a period of time. Did it, in the ground and from a perhaps slightly more learned point of view, did it feel like France were clicking in the way that it looked on telly in the corner of a very wet pub in South London? Because it just felt like there was far more intent, far more pace, far more ambition, and I don't know if that's a bit of confirmation bias with the result, or did it feel that way to yourself?
Yeah, most of the narrative in the chat pre-game in France definitely was how Dupont would go with Jalibert together, because they've tried it so many times, but it hasn't really clicked, and it finally did click on Thursday night. But also, there's an element of that where Ireland weren't really that great, were they? A lot of Irish fans won't like it coming from a Welsh fan, but we're Welshmen, but that first half, they didn't pack a punch attackingly, and defensively, they just got steamrolled. France have got such a triple threat attack where they can bully you up front, they can go out wide, and they can even kick behind you and chase. And France tried it all, and almost all of it worked. And Jalibert is smooth, and when he's playing with a pack that's dominating, then he has a lot of fun. There's a saying in French called in a fauteuil, which means in an armchair. And he did get an armchair right, didn't he? He could have a bit of fun. And then when you've got Thomas Ramos, who's almost like a second 10, Patrick Alat, as the attack coach said this week in Midi Olympique, that the plan is to have almost two 10s in open play. And well, you can't really ask for two better 10s in attack, can you?
I think the way they worked together was really encouraging for France. I thought it was really cool the way that they almost alternated, kind of sitting in the backfield and launching counters or stepping in at 10. And I think you did see the benefit. A lot is made of the Dupont-Ntamack relationship, but I've always kind of said that I think there's also that same instinctive telepathy between Dupont and Ramos. And we definitely saw that a few times where Ramos just steps in, calls for it, sees it's on. And, it's almost like Dupont will run the show until he hears kind of a shout from Thomas Ramos, and then he'll fling it out of the back. But I think the fact that Jalibert kind of also kind of had that kind of element and fun to his game, and they stepped in. And I think when you saw him go for it ball in hand, you're right, Rich, there was a real intent to run. And I think I watched it back today as well. And I think I was more impressed with Jalibert's performance watching it back than I was even at the time. I thought some of his kicking is absolutely fantastic. And yeah, his running is amazing, and he so nearly sparks some wonderful things. But some of his kicking out of hand was superb, and the selection of when they kicked and when they ran, I thought was brilliant. I thought it was really encouraging the way that they kind of, it's almost like the Dupont, the Jalibert and Ramos relationship is almost as much of a thing as the Dupont and Jalibert relationship.
Neilton, I know it's going back a few months now, but obviously there was the big kind of disappointment of the second half collapse against South Africa, but save a few lovely counter-attacks, it wasn't the most convincing of autumns all told for France. And actually the gap between this performance and where they finished it seems, at least on the surface, like a chalk and cheese really. What was the reaction to we obviously get the bits we can translate and maybe a bit of an anglicised point of view, but what was the reaction to where France were at after that autumn and therefore kind of coming into this those selections again were the headline. But what was the kind of the expectation, the feeling? Is there any pressure you think on any of the stalwarts and Galthié? How did it feel on like your side of the channel?
There's massive disappointment for that South Africa game because it was being built up as being like the revenge for the World Cup quarter final. In the autumn, just like flattened and petered out. Like they just about beat Fiji. Australia were not a good team by the end of the year, and France just about managed to beat them. So there was pressure definitely, and for the first time since I've covered Galthié since he took over in December 2019, and it was the first time I saw a big two-page spread in the keep really pointing fingers at him, and it wasn't just him as an individual, but almost across the board. His the way he communicates with the press, the game plan, the team selection, like it was quite funny to see that there wasn't a single journalist giving his byline on the piece. It was just the rugby writers of the keep was on the piece, because obviously I think they were scared they would tread on getting some hot water with that. And so there was pressure on Galthié. Like Galthié will not get sacked because of what he's done off the field with governance and how he's organised between the federation and then the top 14 and the pro clubs, and how he's now managed to get 42-man squad training at Macclesfield every week when in the past it was barely 30. The relationship between the clubs and the National Federation are at the best as possible, and Galthié has been a big part of that because he just has been. Laporte was part of it, and now Florian Gil has taken over as well. And there's no threat; he's not going to get sacked. But there was pressure because I think the fans and the press realise how talented this generation of players are, and how talented Antoine Dupont is, and how much of a shame it would be to see him not win a World Cup. We can think of all great Six Nations win a Grand Slam, fantastic, but the holy grail is the World Cup. And if Antoine Dupont doesn't win a World Cup, then something's gone wrong somewhere, and that's why we're all leading up to it.
I think Galthié, on the whole, like we've been fairly critical, Rich, of perhaps some of the team selections. We've definitely wanted more, and I think I've laid quite a lot of the blame at Patrick Arletas, because you've got these brilliant attacking talents and they're left to kind of do it themselves. Like all the good stuff in the autumn was just and realistically in the summer tour as well was just individual skill. Yeah. But I think you've got to give credit. Like it felt like they got the selections spot on in this game. I think when you look at the ploy to go with the two back rowers, or two guys capable of playing back row in the second row, and that their ball carrying is what Ireland kind of couldn't really. That's what pinned Ireland back, was just the relentless. You had 5 ball carriers in that back row, or maybe 5 if you include Marchand and take someone like Cross didn't carry that much, but just the relentlessness of those carries meant that Ireland were kind of always on the back foot. I do think Ireland played into France's hands with basically they had one ploy that it was almost like they'd heard that they were dodgy under the high ball and they were like, right, we're going to try that. But they could have, you only saw for 15, 20 minutes in the second half, Ireland play their own game plan that wasn't just kicking, and even then when they had those sustained periods of pressure, it was still a lot of kicking. But once they kind of carried around the fringes and got their maul game going and stuff like that, they looked like Ireland. But for outside of that 15-20 minute period, they didn't look like Ireland at all. And I think they kind of, I think they played into France's hands. It's hard to know in these scenarios whether it's Ireland bad or France good. I think France kind of put Ireland on the back foot, and Ireland kind of never really fired a shot until 60-minute mark, basically.
But Illtud, just to pick you up on the point you were making before, I know it's often been kind of like melodramas between coaches and the top 14 sides, but personally, I wasn't particularly aware of Galthié's role in that kind of governance piece and just what he's done for the international side through that. Like, what are you able just to quickly cover kind of where that was at, his sort of intentions, plan, where it's got to? Because it's nothing that I've ever really heard or seen too much about, and I'm fascinated by what he's been doing behind the scenes.
Right, here's French row politics in 60 seconds. No, so the basic thing was that Galthié, before becoming the French head coach, he'd coached at Montpellier, he coached at Toulon, but more importantly, he was the TV pundit for France home games, which meant that he saw what every other country was doing as part of his research of being a pundit. He saw what Ireland were doing, he saw what South Africa were doing, what was working, what wasn't working, and he realised that they had more time. Those head coaches of other national teams had more time with their players than Philippe Saint-André, Guy Novès, Jacques Brunel did. And also, they had more players to train with. So originally, they had about a 30-man squad, or maybe 31, 33, like you'd have in a World Cup squad, and then they would be together just in the week leading up to games. When in Ireland or Wales, as an example, they get that extra week before Six Nations, and even in that fallow week they stay in camp. When in the past it wasn't. They would go back to the top 14 clubs and they would play a full-blown game 9 p.m. on a Sunday live on Canal Plus, and they'd be back into Marcoussis with a French squad on Monday, but they wouldn't be able to train then until Wednesday because they had to recover. Well, now what Galthié asked was, no, I want my he has a wider 42-man squad, and then depending on when the game's played and which week it is, then sometimes he releases 14 of those players back to their clubs to play, and he keeps 28 with him at Marcoussis. And those 28 are normally the 23 that are going to be play the game, and 5 travelling reserves. When they cover last weekend, it was, off the top of my head, Thibaut de Bagna was on there, a couple of props, Maxime Lamotte, and there was some of there. So the players where you need cover just in case there's an injury during the week, etc. And that's what he's got, really. He got that during the build-up to the World Cup. There was a bit of tension after the quarter-final loss because the top 14 were like, well, we've done all this for you and we haven't got the World Cup, so what more do you want? Since then, there's been a new agreement where there are a few more changes regarding player release. That's why we won't see France's first-choice players playing against New Zealand next summer, because it's only a week after the top 14 final, so any Toulouse players won't be there. But ideally...
Well, haven't they said that they will release? It's just everyone's assumed that final will be Toulouse v Bordeaux, and therefore you're not going to have half the first team. Yeah. But if, for example, and it has happened in the past, like if Toulouse slip up in a semi-final, and you could have Antoine Dupont available for that New Zealand tour, right? Because I think the clubs have said that they'll release them.
If it's Castres against Stade Francais, then Galthier's thumbs up.
Let's hope so.
You know, and the All Blacks are probably annoyed because the new coach will have to start against like a proper team. But no, and that's what he's done. He's calmed things down. It's not just him, a lot of work, and also what he's done, which is quite cool, which a lot of other coaches do, which he goes to these clubs now. He goes to watch Bayonne train. He takes his forwards coach, he takes Arletas with him. They go for a couple of days to see Bayonne train. It helps him because he can have a look at or is it Alexandre Fischer or Georges Segond. Then when it goes to Perpignan, he can have a catch up with Posolo Tulagi to see how he's going, have a chat with Laurent Beat to say how's he tracking. All this different stuff, like it makes him far more. There's much more communication between the clubs and the national team and the national coach, so everything is a bit more rosy. Now they just need the results to come.
I did notice on the when they do the 28-man squad, the tweet or the official, or maybe it was the official press release, says in agreement, as part of the agreement between the LNR and the FFR, these players have been released, which I kind of thought, like, don't know, I found that quite curious that they've like spelled it out, which kind of highlights how, I guess, the history of it and getting to that position was a bit of a struggle.
I also think that it's a big like communication drive for them. If both entities have the names on that press release, it shows they work together. You know, it paints them both in good light, and it makes them both. Because without the clubs, you don't have the national team. But without the national team, you don't have the clubs. They both have to work together for the whole sport in general to flourish and to evolve. And I think they've realised that. And Yann Robert, who's the president of the top 14 now, he's relatively young for a president of the LNI. In the past, they've been voluntary roles. Now he's going to get paid to do it. He was at Lyon, 2 years ago, if that. And he's really energetic. He's really keen to meet journalists. He's had lunches with, like, off the record lunches with different journalists over the past 6 months just to see like what they think could be improved, etc. So yeah, he's things are going in the right direction.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I think there's always, I don't know, there's such a Galthié seems to have such an air to him, being that kind of, I don't know, that sort of PR exec manager across the clubs doesn't necessarily, well, certainly to me, doesn't necessarily scream his most obvious trait. So yeah, it's very, very cool to hear. Rob, is there anything else you wanted to discuss re Ireland, or should we wind it ahead to?
Yeah, I've got beef, haven't I? I've got beef with the other Rob Graham and the Rugby Pod, who they damn bigger calling him out. Like they said Mikel Guillard was a luxury player. They compared him to Chandler Cunningham South, who I think is the near definition of a luxury player. And I don't know, I was just quite I think like the biggest rugby pod in the world should be better. They've got to do better rather than just dialing it in. I think, anyone that's seen Mikel Guillard play knows that he's just an absolute workhorse. And yeah, I also like it's just the element of shock that they had about like Aldrit and Fiku and Peno not being available. I think like I don't know. I think these big podcasts that they think they know French rugby and we don't know French rugby, but I think we know it better than some of them because we follow it. But yeah. Would you say that like the people understood why those guys got dropped and why the guys were coming through? Because I like we were completely on board with it, really, I'd say, Rich. Like, is the French public like, oh my God, Aldrit's been dropped, I can't believe that? Or are they like, well, yeah, he's been crap for a couple of years, so.
There's an element of like French being relaxed about everything, like, yeah, we don't not they don't care, but there's like, well, like the Gallic shrug that's life, innit? But there's like an element of also like realizing, well, if you actually look at it, if you actually think of Aldrit's had problems. He took a couple of months away from rugby because he couldn't handle it after the World Cup, because mentally he wasn't in the right state. And since then, he hasn't been superb either with La Rochelle. He will get back to his best, I'm sure, because when he is on his day, he is the best in British France. There's no doubt about that. Galthié, you can look at his age profile. You can see that he's not in great form for France. Racing aren't doing great. They're not the most exciting backline, despite having really good players on paper. It's not really clicking, and the colours are definitely in the back. Yeah, exactly. And then Peno, well, if you look at the 2 weeks before, he gave away 2 tries. Like, he passed the ball before scoring. Like, if Galthier's seeing that, he's like, well, if the record try scorer of my country doesn't want to score tries for his club, obviously. And then when you look at the options they've changed them with, Atisogbe is the most consistent winger. Defensively, he's sound and he really makes a mistake. Deporter, well, we've spoken about it. And the back row, the back 5 rejig worked, didn't it? So, okay, I'm still not convinced by Jalanche as a test number 8, but the balance was there. It was all right.
Test back row, he's clear. Like, he was banging people. Like, whether he's actually number 8, and they kind of got away with it because of the balance with Olivon and Guillard, and then kind of Miafu, I guess, in the second half. Like, the ball carrying came from other guys, so it's the overall balance, isn't it? It's like France are a lot less numbers on jerseys than kind of other nations in the Six Nations.
It's almost it's a funny thing, like in French you don't have open sides and blind sides, you have right and left, so that changes the way you attack and defend. So like, and even you could even argue like now second rows they're not just second rows. Even Thibaut Flamand, when he plays, he can cover 6 if he wants to, and he's quite a flamboyant second row. Cameron Waukee can play from 4 to 8, they've got options and they're just really versatile.
Just on one of those, you mentioned giving the ball away for tries, and on one of those back rows, we were denied by the slightest but very clear knock-on. We were denied, Richard, possibly the best own try of the season. I think it would have been nailed on when Lenny Nucci just passed the ball to Ronan Kelleher 1 metre from his own line. That would have been a spectacular own try. That was
Nucci's been a favourite for a while, but that secured it, or came very close to securing it. It was
also just after he'd like monstered Jack Conan as well.
Yeah. He was fantastic defensively, wasn't it?
Going on to that, from what have you been at Marcoussis today?
No. So France players arrived Monday night. And then
okay.
They trained first on Tuesday. They were given 4 days off over the weekend because the training schedule has got much tighter. The sessions are lasting less time, but they're a bit more intense, and they decided to give them 4 days off pretty much. So they were off from Friday until Monday night. And they'll be back on Tuesday, Wednesday to fully train. I think they're training as well on Thursday. But there's already talking. Because Flamand's come back in, Boudin's come in, Gourge is out. So there's definitely selection calls to be made.
That was going to be that was where I was going with it, because the rumours that I've seen is that, well, Flamand comes back in, which is kind of understandable. Guillard retains his shirt, although I saw in one place it was Guillard / Miafu, and you kind of, Olivon's gone, Boudon comes in for Jegu, and you've kind of got a bit of a reshuffle. So all these guys that played really well, like Olivon, Jegu had a pretty good game. Guillard was obviously man of the match. There's a chance that he might not start. Feels a bit strange. And I think the selection that they picked for Ireland might not work against every team. I think they might need a bit more maul time, so they might need Flamand and Miafu against Scotland and England, but to kind of switch that around feels a bit Feels a bit so soon. Feels a bit strange. I do think he's injured. He's injured his ankle, hasn't he? But I think Calvin Gorge was probably the one player for me that came out. Him and maybe the Toy Rex, Dorian Aldegheri. But I think Calvin Gorge did not have a good game. Like he fell off a few tackles. He didn't look that great in attack. He kind of chewed up some space down the right for Atis Ogbe. I think, after everyone's singing his praises, but I think
Rob, we know your intentions to get Fabien Galthié in this side of incredibly
it's happening,
incredibly opaque.
I can't wait for a whole week of talking about Fabien Galthié. People will be like, who's this Timu kind of Louis BLBRA. It's like, no, this guy's the real deal. But really, you haven't heard any kind of anything yourself on kind of what the makeup of the team will be. I guess if they're only just coming back in now, they won't be releasing who's being let go for the weekend until what, Thursday?
Yeah, Thursday night. Thursday night. No, but I was on the RMC podcast, which is RMC is kind of like almost like a Five Live sort of thing. They do sports and news, but it's privately owned, so it's a bit different like that. So, and I was speaking to some of the guys there today, and like they were saying, okay, the thing is, Flamel has to come back in because he's Thibaut Flamel. He's so consistent, and he's been that part of that of Galthié setup since his debut 6 years ago now. And Boudin could come in as well because when he has played in France, he's never let Galthié down. But at the same time, it doesn't matter because if you bring both of them back into the 23, Olivon will just replace Orado on the bench and Jegu will probably pip it for Nucci just because he's more of a line-out option. But at the same time, there's also the argument with Denis Charvet, who's the former France international three-quarter, who was saying, don't change stuff just for the reason, just to change stuff. Like maybe keep consistency, leave combinations together for them to have minutes together on the pitch. And then also, like, this hurts me a lot to say, but it's just Wales, really. Like, they can almost put out like a second team and still get a 50-point win, essentially. So, like, does it matter if you change? It's almost, Galthié can change and make his selection choices totally in his team, for his team. He almost doesn't have to worry about the opposition because they probably will win easily. So the ball is in his court, really. I'm sorry, Wales, but I'm sorry, the land of my parents, my brother, my sister, everyone. I'm sorry, but really, realistically, that's how what it is, really.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of have to ask you. You mentioned politics earlier. I'm not asking for the full sort of psychodrama and the pretty sort of sad, frankly, whatever's been going on over in Wales. But for this squad right now, I assume you watched the England game at the weekend. It was so insipid, and it just felt off the whole occasion. Can you see that Wales team being able to muster anything this weekend? Do you think they are just in such a difficult place, or do you think there is there a glimmer anywhere? And I appreciate that probably sounds like a slightly patronising question to Welsh fans, but yeah, I can't. I was just baffled by what I saw at the weekend.
It's heartbreaking. I have so much sympathy for the players. And especially Steve Tandy and those who are associated with the Ospreys, because what they're going through is incredibly difficult. Some of them have signed contracts thinking they're going to still play for this team for the next years to come, and they probably won't be. Some of those players have dreamt of playing for that team for the rest of their careers, but they won't be able to. And it definitely plays on this because it overshadows everything they care about in their whole lives, So it is very difficult. But then when you look on paper, it's not the fault of the players that are there. It's not the fault of even Steve Tandy who selects them. It's not the fault of the guys running the union now. It's the fault that what happened 10, 15 years ago when Warren Gatland was in charge. And you had this prioritisation over Team Wales, and everything else was forgotten. And well, during that period, we had a golden generation of fantastic players, almost 2 test quality players in every position. And because we forgot about, actually, let's keep bringing these players through, this is what we've got. We've got incredible individuals still. Like, there are exciting players who I would happily enough pay a ticket to go and watch, like Louis Rizamit. Second half looked really well. Dan Edwards, he reminds me of Errol Thomas. I just think he has that little bit of spark that he can really get a backline going. Thomas Williams is exciting. Harry Deeves off the bench was superb. So there are glimmers of hope, definitely, but collectively it's going to take time for us to catch up, and there is a lot of catching up to do.
The glimmer, Rich, of course, is that you just don't know which France team's going to turn up. You don't know whether they'll turn up on the day. So there's the glimmer of hope for Wales. I think the one thing that for me is like there's you mentioned a load of backs there, but like Nicky Smith is the best scrummaging loosehead in the Prem, like factually almost. Dowie Lake's a fantastic player. You've got Dafydd Jenkins, who's captain at a really good Exeter team. Adam Beard is going into our areas of relative expertise. Like he's had a fantastic season at Montpellier, and I did notice, this is a really random and useless fact, there's of the 8 forwards and if you include the scrum half, there were 9 clubs represented by the Welsh 1 to 9, which I don't know whether that plays into it, like literally no like club combinations there, whether that was kind of why it didn't work. But I think that's probably shoehorning a narrative in there, because those guys are really talented players, and I think there's more in there. They can definitely do better than they did at the weekend. So
it's a far cry from 2008 when there was 13 Ospreys in the starting lineup, and Wales won and we took them. And you're right, like combinations are key, and to get people to gel quickly, you kind of almost need them to know each other quite well. Like someone like Adam Beard hasn't really been involved much at the test level. Thomas Francis has come back in from the cold since at Provence. Dave Jenkins has been injured for a while. So there is like a question of like definitely gelling and getting to know each other, and getting to know Steve Tandy, getting to know the setup, and also everything, the off-field context as well. As always, it was difficult. I can imagine for Adam Beard, a former Osprey who's in France, who's a bit far away from stuff, coming back into the Goldfish Bowl and hearing all these stories about his mates or guys he knows really well. Like he played under Steve Tandy at the Ospreys. He played under Steve Tandy at the Lions. Like he knows that they were close relationships within that squad, and then it's not an easy time, definitely.
Rob, anything else on the Six Nations looking ahead? I think there's maybe a little bit of squad change on the horizon, but otherwise,
there's like some murmurings on the fitness of Yoram Moefana on there as well. So there's a very real possibility that Fabien Galthié makes his debut this weekend, whether it's off the bench or as a starter. The specialist inside centre getting that role. It's like when this time last year, it was actually the Wales game when Atis Ogbe was about to make his Six Nations debut. It's kind of like, can't wait for the world to see the talent that this guy has and how good he is. Yeah,
Rob, if Deportaire goes down as well, we'll know you've had the voodoo doll out and you've been sending him off to the Pyrenees.
Bradbury and Gaetan just from the start. Excellent.
Illtud, before I get a few of your thoughts on the top 14, which obviously we've got like a little round shoehorned in this week before another week off. Always try and keep Rob honest on what kit he's wearing. I noticed little Canterbury shirt number there. What's the stash this evening?
It's definitely a reference to the problems in Welsh rugby. It's a Swansea RFC shirt from 2002 that I found on French Vinted for €18.
Nice.
And because the person was selling it, all it had was Canterbury long sleeve as the description. So
Isn't that like your your Claremont one?
My Claremont, the one with the Michelin Claremont, was I think Puma ice hockey shirt.
Puma football shirt or something,
or Puma football shirt, and it's I think, as we discussed once, it is unfortunately size XXX weenie.
It's
Urios sized,
but it's an incredible bit of kit. I think that was about £6.
I've got a soft spot on Vinted where I just put like the long sleeve cotton rugby shirts in, and whatever goes, I'm buying it really. So, and I have to admit, I was a Swansea fan and an Ospreys fan, and there was 3 or 4 years when Swansea had Canterbury and they had like a shark on the sleeve and stuff, and I've spent a lot of money over the past months on that. So
glorious. Great way to spend the hard-earned cash for sure. So a little bit of top 14 this weekend. Obviously, doublons. Rob, your favourite term for new listeners. The one thing I was keen to ask you is it's so compressed. I know this is often the case in the top 14 in the kind of middle. The bottom two, maybe Leon ever so slightly adrift, but a couple of good performances recently. And then the rest is throw a blanket over it. We've got a fair while left to play, but is there anyone in that sort of peloton that, from what you've seen, you think is a better shout than others to be there and thereabouts in the barrage at the end of the season? Because it seems whatever happens week on week, just nothing changes.
It's a peloton on one of those days in Tour de France, which is quite flat, isn't it? They're all stuck together. There's a bit of wind. Maybe like Toulouse will break up a bit, and then they'll get dragged in by losing at Perpignan and then Powell come from nowhere, but then also get tracked away on a random away day. I don't like saying this, but I think Cast, the way they went in the Champions Cup and the way that Sadorni's got them, I watched a bit of a behind the scenes documentary about the game in Munster that will, shameless plug, that will be mentioned in this week's Jouet, the French Rugby Dispatch. And it's just, there's his pre-match speech from Sadorni. It was in French, but like it was amazing. As in, like, this guy, like it wasn't a rallying call. It wasn't a Paul O'Connell put the fear of God into these guys. It wasn't Martin Johnson. It was just calm, composed. Even like, well, this guy's makes sense, you know. And there's also the narrative about Castro Winslow that added into it. And they've got a really cool balance of really exciting like Fijians in the back line, and then they've just got like truckers up front who just do the work, you know. Tom Sanderforth is not the Tom Sanderforth of 2-3 years ago, but he'll do the dark arts and the dirty work and get job done. Like they've got a back row of, there's no glamour there at all, but they're getting it done, and that's the sort of stuff that maybe can get you into a barrage place. Like, I've got a bit of romanticism about Bayonne just because I love the Basque country and I've got good mates who live down there, and I went down to Jean Daugé and realised like that is club rugby at its best if you want to go and experience it. Like, it would be great to see them in there again because they're kind of evolving, but everything off the field with Patat and Tayeb and whatever is not really great either, but it's quite open, which is quite nice as well. So we'll see, really. But one thing I don't want is I don't want Toulouse to win at the end of the season, just because sport is about competition, about variant and having different people being able to have a go at stuff. And I think anyone but Toulouse, and that's nothing against Toulouse as a club institution, the players. Like, I've got mates who support Toulouse. I've been down there to watch games. Like, it's a great. They are the example of how to run a professional rugby club without a doubt. But which would be nice to see someone else. And why not Poa, Rob? Let's go.
We just need someone to do them in the semi, and then we can get Bordeaux in the final, and then we'll beat Bordeaux. I do think. I think just looking at the table, it kind of blows my mind, like how Clermont are, in the reckoning, or like Clermont and Racing feel like they've had such bang average seasons, and yet they're 4 points off third, which is madness. I think Bayonne are probably the one team in that, maybe La Rochelle as well, that are on a genuine downward trajectory. I think you could see a kind of, maybe not this weekend immediately, but over the next few weeks, you could see a kind of top 9, and then La Rochelle, Bayonne and Lyon kind of sitting above the bottom 2, because I just think Bayonne just really struggling. They're really struggling. I think losing at home again is not a good sign. And the way that La Rochelle have kind of unravelled at home to Lyon as well is not a good sign. Like, it's those home games where there was some fairly ropey performances in that last round, wasn't there? I also think Caster's the team on the rise. I do think Castor the ones that could go up there.
I also think Stade Francais this season are so weird. Like, they haven't really changed the squad. Paul Gustard hasn't really changed the way they're playing, but it seems to work after last season not working at all. It's insane. And like, I follow them quite intensely because they play down the road from me. But like, I don't know what's happened, and I can't put my finger on it. But there's one reason why
they've turned it around. Tawara Kerbalo.
Yeah. Go on.
Like, he's amazing, and suddenly you get him in your side and you're playing with a load of pace. And they looked better when they did have Brad Webber last year, but then he had that horrible injury and they looked really bad again. And he never quite formed that partnership with Carbonell, whereas Kerbalo seems to have found that partnership, and they've actually kind of got some form into Matassi off the bench, and even had Abadi as well. So yeah, I think like, he has made them tick, and as giving him the pace that he can play with has helped Carbonell a lot.
Motassi's another one on that French scrum half list, a depth chart. Well, he's got something, definitely, and he'll play for France one day, but they're going to have to be a few injuries here and there, and there's no really better example for him to follow or train with it than Kerbalo, really, is there? So he'll be right. I'm a big fan of Matassi.
We were talking about him the other week. I think I was the only person in the UK who paid my €7 to stream on what I think was basically someone's mobile phone, Stade Francais v Exeter. And Matassi was fantastic in that, and he was there's a bit of snap and a bit of aggro, and Rob pointed out that he's got Morgan Power and Rory Cocker in the coaching staff.
It's so funny.
Yeah, proper
The,
dark
the
dark
niggly,
arts.
the niggly school of scrum halves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Professor Snape's. Yeah, it was very very cool. Have you been keeping much of an eye on Pro Day this year, or yeah, I don't know how much you get to see amongst your trips to Marcoussis and sort of Stad and places like that.
Holiday is difficult because on a Friday night it always clashes with my rugby training, so I never get to watch any of it live. So I'm always the first thing I do when I come off the field is check the scores and table, see what's happened. But sadly, I never get to like sit down and watch all the scores come in multiplex at the same time when they go around the grounds. Oh, there's been a try at Mont-de-Marsan, there's been a try at Carcassonne, which is a shame really. But there'll be a weekend off soon when I can do that on a Friday night. Like Van are tracking really nicely, and they deserve to go up. No one deserves to go up, but they do because everything seems to be going the right way with them off the field and the field. They've got the squad to do it. Like I did a piece on Colomiers a few weeks ago, and I really enjoyed looking into how they were going and the balance they've got and some of the players, individuals they've got as well. A good friend of mine coaches down there at Provence. George North is there, Thomas Francis is there. So also that's quite cool. And yeah, you can't really forget Feynman Sam at Grenoble either. So there's always definitely different like narratives or stories. And the Pro de Deux, like if you have time and you really and you really like rugby, just watch Pro de Deux because it's got everything. It's got like random foreigners like an ex-Wallaby and Caleb Batimu. It's like, oh, how has he turned up a Colomiers? Well, he has, all right. But then it's also got some really interesting like youngster players. I think is it Perry Mayo, who I thought was an Australian, but is fully French just because he's just for some reason.
I assumed he was Irish.
Yeah, fair, good call as well. Yeah, and like there's so much colour to that league, and it would be cool to get it more interest about like around the world and stuff. But at the same time, what makes it so great is that it remains so like intrinsically French. Really, like no one wants to go to Aurillac on a Friday night in the snow in January, do they?
We get like the Thursday evening game broadcast over here on YouTube, and it's talking of Perry Mayo, it's Nevers Colomiers this week. Do you know much about Nevers? I saw that you you posted something the other day about they're kind of starting a new centre of excellence and stuff like that. Because they're quite a big budget team. Now, someone told me that it's because Nevers is a bit of a dive and they need to pay people lots of money to get them there. But have you got any insight at all into Nevers? 2 hours on the train from Paris
France,
as well. So it's
yeah. So in France, there's this idea of a part of France called La Diagonale de Vide, which is the diagonal of emptiness, which goes from the north, almost Lille, and then you go diagonally across down to the Basque Country to Biarritz. And it's a narrow corridor that the joke, there is nothing there.
And there's no like you can't get there's no direct trains anywhere. Like if you try and get parts of that divide.
Yeah.
To what looks like it should be an easy trip, you've basically got to go via Paris or Toulouse.
Exactly. And Nevers is almost slap bang in the middle of it. What Nevers is useful for them, definitely, is they're between Clermont and they're between Paris. So any players that get let go by Racing, Stade Francais, or even Massy, or by Clermont, well, there's an easy catchment area there in theory, especially for the youngsters. But like you said, it's not an attractive place to go. It's a small town. You get a few tourists there in the summer, nice little light cycle rides, whatever. But it's not the most glamorous place to stay or to sell it to as a player. But what they do have is they focus a lot on getting like French. I think a few years ago they had the most GIF of anyone else. They had like only 3 or 4 foreigners in the whole squad, and then they've rebuilt from that. They've got Sean Reynolds at 10, who's South African 10, looks really exciting. They had Christian Ambadiang, the Cameroonian cast winger, who really like set up and had a go, and like thanks to Nevers, he's now where he is now. And yeah, it's not the most glamorous place, but the weather's better than Aurillac, so at least you can sell that.
Feels like they've got a bit of a knack of uncovering gems. Like Ambadiang would be an obvious one, but someone like Luca Plateret is someone like the guys that have come through at Nevers or kind of passed through Nevers that are kind of early to mid-20s. They seem to be, and Perry Mayo is kind of the next one. I think he's Massy or from one of the Parisian clubs, possibly originally. Like, yeah, they just seem to pick them pretty well. I don't know what the scouting setup is there, but maybe it's the catchment area stuff, but they seem to pick up these kind of gems out of nowhere. Yeah. And
there's obviously, like you mentioned there, that I posted that they've got a central elections being built. Like, there's money there, definitely. When there's thoughts of actually, we're not just going to be a Pro de Deux club, we need to actually bring our players through. And I played a season in the north of the Auvergne, which is like, I was an hour north from Clermont, and then I was 3 hours south from Paris. So Nevers was, in theory, the closest pro club to where I was. And we had loads of like Nevers cast-offs playing for us. Shows how like wide of a map they've got really in that part of France. And then they do well. They recruit well. They can spot, like, because not every player becomes a world-class player at 16, 17, 18, 19. Sometimes they have to wait until they're 21, 22, 23, and you just have a go. You have to have a chance and prove yourselves. And Pro D2 is the best place to do it because you get to play so many games. Okay, you get your 5 weekends, 1 weekend off. It's a long season. If you want game time, go to Pro D2.
As if to prove that Clermont Paris point, I was just looking up. So there's a guy, Kevin Noah, who plays back row for Nevers. I think has just been linked with I think Stade Francais, Stade Rochelet, La Rochelle have come in from next year. He was previously at Clermont and previously at Massy to that as well. So as if to prove that out. Also briefly, you mentioned you're playing a bit of rugby. We've been to sort of far and wide a few games. I don't know if when you play Sunday, how are you faring this year and who are you playing for?
I don't really want to talk about it. I play in the lowest league of second rugby in France, which is, I'm quite proud to say that because I didn't know it was possible. And then I get a few games because in France, at local levels, the seconds and the first play in the same leagues, but just against the first and seconds, and they play in the same place. So the seconds play at 1:30 and the first play at 3 or 3:15, which creates quite a
double
cool
header.
Yeah, like every Sunday is a double header, so it creates a good atmosphere. There's like 40 odd blokes there to pay for beer at the bar, as opposed to just 22 if you just got one team, or like you just get more people around it and it's more atmosphere. And I play for a club called Red Star, which was originally the same Red Star football club.
Yeah.
And I play for the rugby version. They date from 1897 or something like that. So it's really historic. It's one of the oldest clubs in France.
Wow.
But we play in the 8th division, unlike the football team who are 5 points off the top of the 2nd division of football. So yeah, very different sort of atmospheres. But no, and like what I really enjoy is like going on away games and like going to like random towns. And like right now, because we play a regional league, we don't go that very far, but you end up going to like, I've gone to a town called Dordogne where you just like on the end of the RER, like overgrown Paris line, like it is at the end of that, you get off, you're like, where have I ended up? And it's part of the Diagonale de Vide almost. You're like, where am I? It's insane. And it's just nice to like, it's a good way to see France playing because you just get to see like random stuff. I played a season in the Federal 3, which was back then would have been the 5th division, and now is like the 7th division because of the reforms. And that was it. We played like it was a bigger geographical spread. We played down in Ussel, which is almost Brive. Like the bus would leave like I think 5 a.m. meet on a Sunday morning. Yeah, it was fun. But at the same time,
tasty.
Like it was a nice bus journey back. And then another weekend, we played in Sancerre, the wine growing.
Oh yeah,
Sancerre, and like we had a few beers after the clubhouse, really nice, and you had like all these vines falling down. Like it was the most picturesque ground I've ever played in. And then just before we left, one of the players brings like a box on a table and said, "Here we go." But this is just for the seconds, and it was just 6 bottles of like fresh, really crisp, cold Sancerre for the journey home. And like at home, that a bottle of Sancerre is what, maybe 15, 20 quid.
Yeah.
This was like 6 free. There you go. Do what you want with it. It's like insane. That's what like rugby is fantastic. Definitely in France, but all over the world. Like if you can find a way of playing it somewhere, do it, and you can just have like experiences and like stories for your grandkids, which is always quite nice.
Fantastic. We always, when we get people on, always like to along that kind of line of trail of thinking, get any kind of recommendations. And it's been a little while since we last spoke to you, so whether it be Paris for any England fans heading out at the end of March, or anywhere you've been on those kind of Friday travels and holidays, are there any and any recommendations, whether it's food, wine, coffee, that we need to know about for our future trips?
Well, for that England France, I'm gonna make like a Google Maps of all my restaurants that I like, and I'm gonna plan to publish it in the week before for England France, I think. So if anyone's listening, keep an eye out for that. And then like for you guys, I don't know, there's a really cool growing coffee culture in Paris now that wasn't there 5-6 years ago. It was very much like that classic bitter coffee you have in your bistro that like just burns the back of your throat and it's not very nice. Now you've got really good like torréfacteurs, which are like coffee roasteries in Paris, which they go really well. They've all got like, they've either got the cafe or they sell them. Like anywhere that has like Café Lomi or Café Belleville, like you're guaranteed a nice coffee. My go-to is Café Dose, and there's 5 of these different cafes in Paris. There's one right in the middle, and there's a couple about Montmartre, etc., that sort of area, which are quite cool. Then for like boulangeries wise, you can't really go wrong with Mamiche, but that's sadly it's become like a bit of a tourist trap now because whenever you go
Mamiche is good.
there's always queues. There's always queues.
Yeah.
During COVID, I used to go and there was never a queue. And it was really nice. But Mamiche probably is the one bakery you should go to in Paris. There's also a bakery called Leonie Bakery, which is they've got quite a few now. They've got 6 or 7. And the guy who opened it was a former judoka and Federal 2, so 4th tier front rower. And like I'd heard
that sounds perfect.
Yeah, exactly. And I rocked up to the bakery and I saw this guy working it. And it was a gorilla of a man, like no shoulders and no neck, and just like he's definitely that Federal 2 prop, isn't he? And the stuff's really good, so like you can't really complain. It's not just like doing it on the sake of it, and that's really good. And yeah, Paris is always quite cool because there's always new stuff happening and popping up, and like it's hard to keep an eye on it really. But coffee is definitely a big thing now. Like there's always jokes that every neighbour of Paris is getting overtaken over by matcha and whatever, which is sad. But at the same time, like there's also a need for nice coffee in Paris because I can't be drinking like bitter espressos that just burn the back of your throat and aren't fun.
I find in France recently it's the milk. Like I have to go cortado in France over a flat white.
So there's an explanation about this. So the French culturally is the French drink UHT sterilized milk.
Yeah.
And what happened when this is going to get quite boring, but this is my mother-in-law's explanation about it, who's from France. She was like, when supermarkets started in France, they realized that it was cheaper for them to have UHT milk than to have fresh milk because you don't have to pay electricity for your fridges. So then culturally, over the past half a century, the French have got used to not drinking fresh milk. And there are some cafes that in France in Paris where you know you can get them. I might make another Mapster of just that. It won't take too long.
You'll have one subscriber at least.
Exactly. It's fine. That's fine. And and then you just get whenever you heat up that UHT milk, it's weird. It burns quickly, doesn't it? And it's got that sweetness comes out too much. It doesn't go well with a flat white. Like a cortado's okay because you've got the strength of the coffee that takes over. But yeah, I agree that was my.
It's also well expensive for milky coffees.
Yeah,
you can get a double espresso or like a noisette, isn't it? Which is just like a little tiny bit of milk in it. You can get that for like €2.50, and then it's upwards of €5 for a flat white. And you're like, why am I paying so much for this crap milk?
Yeah, exactly. There's a new place open by where I live where it's like €6 for a cappuccino. You're like, I'm not paying that. One of my mates went up to them. Didn't have a go at them, but told them where to go with their pricing, which is just bored.
Amazing. Well, we've covered some proper ground there. We've gone from Nevers to the UHT milk conspiracy and pretty much everything in between. Illtud, where can we mentioned it once twice, but where can people hear more from you? And you've got, I assume, another issue of Jouet coming out this week.
Yeah, so I'm on Blue Sky Instagram for a keep an eye on all the stuff I write for AFP, and then if I'm Substack, just I think type in Jouet, the French Rugby Dispatch on Google, it automatically comes up. The plan this week is I spoke to Nisa Rugby's director of rugby, Gareth Baber, because there's a little bit of a Welsh revolution happening on the French Riviera. They've got attack coach Barry Maddox at the Dragons, they've got Owen Williams at fly half, and they've also got Tyler Morgan, who's just come across from Biarritz, the top of the National, the 3rd tier. So hopefully they'll get it back up to Pro de Deux. And Baber was quite open in saying that I know the problems that exist in Wales. If there's any players that want to come to the French Riviera, then I'll have my arms wide open for them. So no, it was very cool to have a chat with him. And that'll be up on Thursday night. So yeah, feel free to have a look and leave your comments if there's stuff even you guys want to read more about. It's a difficult one to pick a judge because I don't want to go too niche because sometimes it gets too niche. But at the same time, I don't want to go too open. Like I did a piece on Antoine Dupont last week, and it was interesting to write, but it wasn't the sort of stuff like everyone's almost writing about that sort of stuff. What with that, I want to write some different stuff, different angles, and stuff that maybe you don't really read in Rugby Pass or Rugby World or you get elsewhere.
Well, we'll 100% have an eye out for that. We've become quite obsessed with National and the sides and the politics.
They're playing Chambéry this week.
Yeah, he was saying that they travel by bus everywhere and they're getting up. They play at 7 p.m. on the Friday and they get back at like 6 a.m. on the Saturday morning.
Yeah, they've got some travel, haven't they?
Nice to Rouen or Lille.
Lille, Marc on Barrow.
They have leave in 3 weeks. I don't want to tell him, like, you do realise, like, but what he said they do is they get a train across to Aix-en-Provence, and then Aix-en-Provence to Paris is 3 hours, and then Lille is an hour. So it's almost quicker to get to Lille than it is to Chambéry.
Wow. All right. Well, Illtud, thank you so much for joining us. Best of luck with Jouet. We'll keeping a keen eye out for that. Hope all goes well with Gail Fiku when you when you eventually get there. And yeah, massive thanks again for coming on the Rosbif Rugby podcast. It's been superb.
No, pleasure anytime.
Cheers, mate.
What is natural? When you read natural flavors on a label, most people don't realize it's often not real food at all. Those hidden ingredients quietly work against how your body feels and functions over time. That's why Just Ingredients uses only real food ingredients, so you know exactly what you're putting in your body. Stop guessing. Start knowing at justingredients.us.
Massive thanks to Illtud Dafydd, top bloke, top journalist, and yeah, just great chat, Rob.
Yeah, highly enjoyable. Could have chatted could have chatted to him for hours.
Yeah,
obviously
awesome.
not though because I can't speak. But yeah,
the top 14 does return. Little bonus week, would you call it? Sort of. I think it's one-off week.
I hadn't quite realised there wasn't one afterwards. Which is a bit crap, isn't it?
They've just squeezed the fixture in. Yeah, it's a little bit.
At least Pro Day Deux, they've got 4 rounds in this block.
Yeah,
which makes a bit more sense.
A single game block.
And then there's another single game block in top 14 in a couple of weeks' time.
There we go. I wonder, did this track the old format of the Six Nations? This would have been a fallow week in the Six Nations, because then there used to be one in the middle, and then there was another week off. So they're still a legacy of that fixture format. Maybe, don't know.
Maybe.
There is what's taken anything. There's a few tight looking ones, right? This weekend it looks like quite a nicely poised round, as it were.
And a lot of them are on legit TV on Premier Sports 2. Our boys, both of our teams. Ube Baby Cast, if you don't fancy Ireland, well, you can at least watch the first half an hour before Ireland, Italy. That's the lunchtime kickoff, Ube Baby Cast, which is a pretty good game. Good time to get them. Cast lose no one, and Ube Bay obviously lose loads. The other one is a banana skin, which I feel like is a big phrase I'm using a lot at the moment, just generally in rugby. But Perpignan hosting my boys' section powwows at Stade Mijaral. I'm nervous about that one, especially with so many players missing for my. Also, if they're not getting them back until Thursday evening, Leo, Arfoy and Aaron Grandidier and Debanya might not even Desperez.
Axel Desperez, yeah, eight powwows in there. It's pretty incredible to show like how far
the Academy of France, mate.
It's incredible. It's quite something.
Toulon Clermont is the other televised game on Saturday evening, which is that's an intriguing one because Clermont don't lose anyone these days. It's just you just don't know which Clermont side are going to turn up, and I genuinely mean that. That sounds like I'm dialing it in, but I've got no idea which Clermont team turns up. And then Le Classique on Sunday evening.
Yeah.
It felt a bit weird not having any rugby on Sunday. It felt really odd. It was kind of a welcome relief, but also weird.
Yeah, and I know what you mean. Yeah, the Thursday threw us out a little bit, given that's I think we're closer to a week ago than it was over the weekend.
Really to lose there for the taking, I reckon. That could actually be a decent opportunity for Stade Francais, that.
Yeah, definitely. Sell out as well. I had an email from Stade Francais. That's resale only. That's all that's left. So it should be crackling Jean Bouin, which will be a lot of fun. Most importantly of all, Lyon hosting Montauban, Bayonne Racing, and La Rochelle Montpellier.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Could be tight given the relative.
Is Rog going to be there, or is he going to be commentating on Ireland, Italy, or Scotland, England?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Montpellier in 4th, by the way. I just think that's well done them.
Yeah, they've gone okay, haven't they?
Do you think Cast can beat Bordeaux?
Yes, I do.
Do you think Poe will slip up at Perpignan?
Yeah, although I don't know if I'd necessarily. I think Perpignan are a totally different side, aren't they? 2 months ago. Although Po have they've beaten Castres and Bordeaux away, and not always with absolutely everyone in tow. So could be really nicely set up.
Yeah, presumably I don't really know who's going to be. We'll still get Leclerc. Might get Oridu back.
Yeah,
To
possibly.
come in on the bench, and Jolmes and Maximan to start. Yeah, it might not be. It might not actually be a dreadful team because Dan Robson will be playing. You'd hope. It's just whether the Desperez gets released in time because I don't think Simmons is going to be fit. And then it's the backline that gets really cut up because I think. Or am I right in saying that when it's top 14, if you're an under 20, you go to your top 14 club as priority? So I think
don't know.
Valentino might play for Po ahead of playing in the Wales under 20s, France under 20s games. I don't know. But otherwise, they've not really got that many centres.
Yeah, that's fair. Did you watch any of the under 20s at the weekend?
I caught bits of it. I tried to watch it on the train, but I wasn't really paying attention. I'd had a long day of watching rugby, so I wasn't really paying attention. Do you know who was on co-commentary for Ireland, France?
I can safely say I saw none of it.
Someone that you have actually been in contact with via our account on Instagram, who is Irish.
Oh, yeah. La Rochelle Anna.
Yeah, Anna
wicked.
Capeless, yeah. She was on commentary
cool.
as the kind of summer with the second co-coms.
Wicked.
From what I've seen, Luca Calatuana looked really, really good. The fly half from Breve, who played a bit there.
Yeah, nice.
Last summer. There was a brilliant try from your man Remy Martin's son. He basically just picked it up about 10 meters out and powered through a couple of people, just brushed them aside. Yeah, and then Melvin Rattez on the wing, the Perpignan winger, he was good, and I was quite impressed by the guy that came off the bench, Nolan Couillot, the kind of hybrid Pro Evo scrum half. He had a bit of a shocker and then he got injured. But the guy that came off the bench was pretty good, I thought. Labasse, I think he was.
Okay.
Latrace, apologies.
Oh, nice. Have to keep an eye out.
Yeah,
very nice.
There's some decent. Yeah, I didn't watch all of it. I'll do better next week.
And then finally, Pro Day, we mentioned Nevers Colomiers on the Thursday, live on FR UK, which I feel like looks maybe like the most well-poised. Nevers, who needed that little break, who having had a great start to the season, at least at home, have faltered fairly dramatically of late against the best away side in the league, I think, to come. Colomiers have won 7, is it?
Yes.
Away from home, which is
right.
Still remarkable. That should be
They've won 7 away from home.
I'm pretty sure when I was scribbling
6.
an article on this,
6 out of 9, which is
sure that's
pretty
not
impressive.
before their last win.
They've played 19 games, so I think that's.
Well, yeah, they can't have won 7 out of 9.
No.
Away from home. Either way, it's still an incredible record.
And Nevers, who were doing they now have the 7th best home record in the league, having had the 2nd best home record in the league like 3 weeks ago. But yeah, I think they're 4 defeats in a row, or is it 3 winless because they had that draw at home to Mont-de-Marsan, didn't they? So they haven't won since round 15, whenever that was. Nevers Esprit. That was before Christmas. They haven't won since before Christmas.
Wow.
So they need a win.
Definitely. Any other standout fixtures for you in this one?
There's one standout, but possibly not for the right reasons. Do you think we could see triple figures? Van versus Carcassonne. It's a mean question.
No, I don't think so. I think Carcassonne have been in not bad nick recently, have they? I do wonder.
They're not sending a strong side up to Van, are they?
Yeah, they then host Nevers, who haven't won away from home, and then host Aurillac too. So slightly more favourable fixtures to come. No, I don't think there'll be 100, but as you say, that might be a slightly. In fact,
even after that,
evening.
they go away to Agen and then they're at home to Mont-de-Marsan. So yeah,
in that block,
if they're gonna rest,
that might well be the one.
That could be an interesting one. There was another one that I thought. Provence v Oyonnax is the kind of early one on Friday, which is interesting. You'd imagine Provence would be good enough at home. Oyonnax have the pack to match them though, which is something.
Yeah.
Tell you what,
definitely.
pick a winner out of Soyunga-Lem hosting Mont-de-Marsan. That could be, who knows? I mean, Soyunga-Lem have been in dreadful form as well. That could be who knows what's happening in that game.
Yeah, we will see. And then the other one that stands out ever so slightly, Dax Aurillac, a squeaky. That feels like a sort of an 8-7 affair, maybe with a little bit of weather in the Londe. But yeah, looking forward to having it back. Shall we? Well, I think we're pretty much there, Rob. We've had some Petit-Fours in some Red Star Rugby from Illtud and the UHT milk conspiracy. But what has anything kept you up, caught your eye, excited you away from the Six Nations, top 14, etc. this week?
Well, one thing which I actually saw on Illtud's Blue Sky, it's the latest advert featuring Antoine Dupont. He's advertising Volvic on the Paris Metro. That's his latest advert. He's got adverts coming out of his ears. It is, what does it say? Taste the power of nature is the caption. And it's just a photo of Antoine Dupont with some water.
Wow.
Yeah, he's taking over the world. If you look at the agenda, how do you feel about that bottom one? Just that one word that I've put in.
Let me have a look. Scrolling down. Oh, not that enthused, unless you've got something.
Well, it was in Rugby Rama. The major shareholder, Ian Osborne, for Breve, has been mentioned in the... I don't know what that means. He's been mentioned in the Epstein files. Ian Osborne, the Breve major shareholder. But then, apparently... Okay. But that can mean anything. Apparently Donald Trump's been mentioned in it more times than Harry Potter's mentioned in the Harry Potter books.
Okay.
We'll move on. We'll move Talking of nefarious characters, though, running for the municipal elections in Toulon is, of course, Murad Boudjelal, who is running for mayor of Toulon.
I did see a couple of weeks ago. I think it's quite a significant election, and I know
it is quite significant. Yeah.
And there is also a former Toulon player. I had this scribbled down, who is also or was certainly in the running. But I believe the kind of redevelopment / rebuild of the Mayol is perhaps unsurprisingly actually quite a big like agenda item. Yeah, so well, there we go. Let's keep an eye on that. That sounds like kind of modern politics summed up quite nicely.
I've got two slightly nicer ones.
Come on, tell me.
Section Parois, I got an email the other day for the 2026 calendar, which they are doing with 4th RHFS, which is the 4th or 4e Regiment de Helicopters de Force Spéciale. The Special Forces Helicopter Regiment is the Special Operations Unit of the French Army Light Aviation. It is part of the French Army Special Forces Command. It is based in Pau, and so they've done like a series of photos with Section Parois, and that is the Section Parois 2026 calendar involving some guys from the Helicopter Regiment nearby in Pau. The other one, which you were questioning what I was playing, I saw this, and I think it's like the audio it's one of these like audios from like a random clip, but it's
I've ever seen in my entire life.
The best looking man this girl has ever seen in her entire life.
Longish, not long hair. Yeah, it was.
Is that Baptiste Serra?
Yeah. Marius Domon.
Ah, interesting.
Looking very sexy, but that was put out by that clip of "we found the sexiest man in the world" is a collaboration post between RCT Officiel, so the Toulon official account, and Top 14 Rugby, which I found, like, my girlfriend was like, "Why have you got a girl coming up on your Instagram?" I was like, I don't know, but it's from the official Top 14 Rugby account.
Blimey. Anything is content these days. That's incredible.
Fair play to Marius Domon. He is a very sexy man.
Yeah, he looks good, doesn't he? He does look good. I've actually got very little. The last thing, I usually kind of save screenshots in my phone, but the last one is of Sekou Makalu on that on that
Well,
ski
any
trip.
updates? Any updates from 007?
No, there are not that I can see. There was also a fabulous Instagram post from Cast Olympique with a selection of historic jerseys being modelled by various players. 'Cause I believe it's their 120th anniversary game in a couple of weeks.
Oh wow!
So yeah, I'll keep an eye on that. But yeah, just good. We were speaking about cotton rugby shirts earlier. A good aesthetic from Cass for sure. Okay,
I just found this. Oh, there's some glorious ones in there.
yeah, it's nice, isn't it? Some real retro fare. Rob, we can be found on at Rosbif Rugby all over the place. You can listen to Rob's interview still, Rugby TTL podcast, Rob and Carl talking all things Rugby Europe Championship, French players or REC players in France, French players letting sides go, all sorts.
I wish we'd had this conversation with Illtud before. I would have been more informed.
More clued up. But
Yeah.
well worth a listen. Get in touch, rosbifrugby@gmail.com.
Don't be put off by the slightly terrifying profile picture for the podcast, which is just my face. Maybe be sucked in by the Stade Toulousain jumper, but try and ignore the terrifying image of my face. Don't be put off by that. Yeah.
And otherwise,
happy Fabien Galthié international debut week. Hopefully, touch wood.
FBB day, a rare week where we have Pro de top 14 and international rugby. It's all going on, which is a lot of fun.
Looking forward to Valentine's Day, but the bigger day of the weekend is FBB day.
Always. And a big thank you again to Illtud, who was fantastic as he always is. Give him a follow, give him a subscribe on Substack. Top draw if you want to hear someone who actually knows what they're talking about. All right, I think that's it, Rob. Au revoir.
Au revoir.